Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Okay, I'd like to introduce our main speaker tonight. It was Cliff.
Hi, I'm Cliff Roche, and I'm an alcoholic. Hear me all right in the back? I'd like to compliment you. My home group is the Carlsbad AA Workshop. Meets on Thursday night in Carlsbad, California, down by San Diego, 2.5 hours from here. You gave me a whole 45 minutes. And it's a speaker question and answer workshop. And I had thought perhaps we did the best happy birthday singing in AA, but I don't think so now. I know I got to be in Hollywood with the singers in this goddamn room. Happy birthday. I kept looking around for somebody to conduct. You know. But it was beautiful. It was great. Hold those long notes at the end. My guy sponsor Lamar here he was here a month or two ago, and he was ecstatic about you guys. He thought you were the greatest group since sliced bread, but we'll see. This is the test tonight, for Christ's sake. I'd like to thank my buddy Don, who drove me up here. We've really been on the road this weekend. This is the third. I never talked 3 nights in a row before in my life. You know, I've become a minor celebrity in an anonymous program. Jesus Christ. With 2 nights to Palm Springs and then here. I'm going to like him a little too much. That's what it amounts to. But I do want to thank him because he drives me everywhere. He's a great guy. And I always want to thank him early before he goes to sleep. But I don't care if he sleeps during the talk as long as he stays awake on the way home. And he's a wonderful company and a charming guy, and we can use the diamond lane. Friendship, that's what we're talking about here. Was one other thing, now never mind. Sheila. Rick, I enjoyed you very much. I can't imagine why you'd feel restless, irritable, and discontent. What the hell? You had a sponsor clear back in '91. What the hell? Little carryover there. Shit. I'd last about 3 weeks without a sponsor. Oh, well. But Sheila's got this program, right? Huh? Those promises are come true in her life. It says right there in the promise, fear of financial insecurity will leave us. She lost her job, lost everything. She says, I don't care. Hey, that's my kind of AA. Can I sponsor you, for Christ's sake? Fear, that's all it promises, is the fear of financial insecurity. You know, not financial insecurity. We all got that, but we're not afraid anymore. I'm a millionaire. He's not a bit nervous. I'm a kind of guy that gets to Alcoholics Anonymous in the nick of time. I'm the kind of person who dies of alcoholism because I am a functioning alcoholic. All my life I drank and I function out there in the world better than most people. I was a high school teacher and a college teacher, and I was a good one. I was a great one. I had to do 10 times more than you to prove I was half as good. I don't know if anybody identified that. I'm one of those 95 to 97% of the people who die of alcoholism, who get up every morning and go to work and do the goddamn job. And Don't care how sick you are or whatever it is, you get in there and you do the job, and you go home and you get bombed, and you get up and puke and you go back to work. That's what the experts tell us that. The experts say that 95 to 97% of us that die of this disease are functioning alcoholics. One guy said a functioning alcoholic is one whose wife works. Don't tell that in Allen on me. Don't go over with the goddamn. Makes him go like that. Remember that? You remember that? Don't you think you had a few too many? Now, you had few too few. That's your goddamn problem. And so, you know, I always did the job. We die a lot of ways, you know. We die in car wrecks. That's a real popular way. We functioning alcoholics, huh? Or cirrhosis of the liver. That's the most popular way. And being stabbed by dull scissors. That's it. I remember that one because I remember my wife standing with the scissors saying, "You've got to go to sleep sometime." And I said, "You want to bet?" And all the ways we die. And so I feel very fortunate to be here and still be sober and be happy, joyous, and free. Because a lot of us don't make it here. And a lot of us come here and go back out and die. I have a theory that a lot of people come to some AA meetings and they go to those great tunnel meetings, you know, where everybody's pissed off about being sober. And they go back out and drink and die and never know we're having a good time here. And never know that we're laughing all the time and having a wonderful life. But they just happen to hit the wrong meetings. You know the ones I mean. And I don't go to those because I love life too much, so I just don't go there. But somebody said something earlier about how few people make it. There's a lot of people in AA today, it seems to me, long-time sober gurus and all, you know, who talk about how few people make it in AA. My home group, we started, there were 12 of us 25 years ago, and now we have like between 260 and 300 people every week. I don't call that shrinking. People are coming and staying. I worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of newcomers through the years. And my experience is this. It's just exactly what Bill Wilson said, if you're new. And Bill Wilson said many, many, many years ago, the founder, that's the handsome one over here. And, well, the other one's not so bad. He said that 50% of the people that come to AA never take another drink again as long as they live. He said another 25%, like me, go in and out and in and out and then finally get sober and stay sober the rest of your life. Now, that's 75%. But also, when he made that speech to the American Psychiatric Association, he said 50% of the people who come to AA and earnestly work the steps of the program never drink again. Now, there's a lot of difference, huh, between a court card and working the steps of the program to the best of your ability. The program is the steps of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. So if you're new, you know, and you hang out here a little while and you go back to the bar and the bartender says, "You went to AA, doesn't it work?" Tell him, "I don't know, I didn't try it." If you haven't got to step 12, you haven't tried it. So in my case, I brought my whole family. We were all nuts. My wife and I had that dreaded dual disease, alcoholism and Catholicism. Well, I met her. She was down on Skid Row looking for an alcoholic to abuse her. And you're looking to be abused, you got your guy here, I'll guarantee you. And, you know, we played that Vatican roulette. What losers. We had a kid every 9 months and 20 minutes, it seemed like to me. Every time I came out of a blackout. Who in the hell is that? You Al-Anons, are there any Al-Anons here tonight? We were talking together, and she was the Sunday morning speaker. I was the Saturday night speaker. She got up and said, "He lied. He never lasted 20 minutes." I hate it when they're accurate and cruel, don't you? Then we had all these kids, you know, and they're all right when they're little, like kittens. But they grow. you know. And the older those kids got, we had 5 of them, then we found out what caused them. No, the older they got, the stranger they got. They became weird people. And of course, the older I got, the weirder I got. And God knows the older she got, the weirder she got. She had her sense of humor surgically removed many years ago. And by the time we got her, she had one of those pre-Al-Anon tics, you know, the eye going. Couldn't let her go down there, downtown in Oceanside. That's a marine town. You go downtown doing that, you can make big goddamn trouble. And we were all stark, raving insane. All of our children were crazy. I was the head nut. And a lot of hostility, a lot of anger, ripping and tearing, and just crazy things. And it was the late 60s, and all 3 of my kids were in high school in the late 60s. And you're laughing. You were one of them, goddammit. The oldest son is working his way through high school as a hashish salesman. Oh, you should have seen him. He was a pip. Oh, I'll tell you. He was beautiful. He had hair down to his butt, you know, and his head went like this all the time. Looked like one of those little dolls in the back of a car, you know. Called his mother man. Hey, man, what did you do? He was beautiful. He was beautiful. He loved LSD. Oh, they're weird, those guys, aren't they? I see some eyes around here. I know. If you ever used it, I can recognize it, I'll tell you. And he used to scare the hell out of me, you know. I'd be right in the middle of a sentence. He'd say, what was that? And I'd see those trails going by. And in the shape I was in, I'd say, I don't know what. What was that? And my drunken mother-in-law lived with us. And she would lean on her walker and say, I'll explain it. And we would listen to the explanation. That's the part that kills me. We would listen to the explanation. Oh, my daughters are in high school and they got these boyfriends look exactly like my son. And 3 of them used to get on the couch together. You should have watched that. You know. And Grandma would go around the block, bring these old guys home, and every dope fiend kid in Oceanside would run away and come to my house, you know. They'd fit right in there. I remember Jack Parr said one time, it's like they tipped the world and everything loose rolled to Southern California. I was in Omaha, Nebraska last weekend, and a bunch of them hung on the bushes there, I'll guarantee you. Whoa. I saw some of them there I'd love to sponsor. What a gorgeous earring. Yeah, they hung on the bushes, a bunch. And, you know, everybody in that house was totally insane. Every time I hear the ABCs, I always put the word family in there. No human power could have relieved my family. But God could and would if he were sought. And we have sought God through Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon. And we could have used 12 programs, but the 2 have done fine. And in case I forget later, our middle daughter, who was the most disturbed of all our children, has 10 years of sobriety in the program of Alcoholics and is a going, doing, hard-working member of AA. And our youngest son, who was only 10 when I got sober, has had 10 years just the other day. And the hashish salesman, he's the vice president of a company over in Maui in Hawaii. My Al-Anon's over there visiting him now, and he came on the program a year ago. Our eldest daughter, Kitty, kind of went wrong. She joined Al-Anon about 16 years ago. And so all the sheep are in the corral. The only one, the youngest daughter, Mary, she was behind the couch asleep, didn't pay attention to any of that crap. She was only 7 when we got here. And I don't know, she just grew up straight in a crooked family. I don't know what the hell's the matter with her. You know, she comes to everybody's cake and goes, yeah, I'm good. She's just fine. I don't know what the hell's going on. But we were all totally, absolutely, completely insane. But I was still functioning. You know, I got up every morning and called Ralph for an hour or so. Ralph. Remember that? You know, a lot of people forget that, huh? Remember Ralph? Oh, I hated that part. When there was nothing left but you and Ralph. Oh, God. You know, I was sober 5 years. And we went up to Bakersfield to the Southern California Convention. And we came home, Al-Anon and I, and we had dinner, and I must have gotten, you know, some bad food or something. We went to bed, and I woke up, and I had to head for, and I started puking and throwing up. I started puking, and about 4 in the morning, you know, I was just down to me and Ralph, and I had a spiritual awakening. One of the strongest spiritual awakenings I ever had. I'm not kidding here. I realized I had not puked in 5 years. And the second thing I realized is I don't like to puke. I don't care for it at all. And when I drank, I threw up 7 times a week at minimum. And then I'd, you know, eat breakfast, because my old man told me if you eat breakfast and go to work, you're not an alcoholic. Made sense to me, you know. He never said a word about puking breakfast back up again, so I would, and if I would go to work and I would do the job all day, I would work like a dog, and I'd work for this jerk that was out to get me, and he'd get me, and all day he'd get me, and I'd sick and die and stand in front of these kids that adored me and talk about honor and truth and justice, dying. And then I'd get off and I'd go home, and I was married to her. I had all these long-haired, dope-feet children, and, you know, I'd go in the bedroom and get that pistol out. Did you have one? I always had a pistol. And I was just going to check and see if the barrel was still cold. And when Don had come by just about that time and say, "Come on, Cliff, let's go have some fun." And I'd say, because I don't know what kind of drunk you were, but I could not resist fun. Remember that? Don't say that in an Al-Anon meeting either. They don't care for it. No. They don't like fun. They have fun. But you, in an AA meeting, you know, I love to say it in an AA meeting. You say it in an AA meeting, you say, fun! All their eyes glaze over. You know, oh, yeah. A little slobber out of the corner. You know what I'm talking about, huh? We know, huh? Fun! Getting beaten to a pulp and go to jail. Fun! Find your car at the bottom of a ravine in the morning. Remember that, huh? With you in it. You know. Fun! Oh, I loved it. Damn near died of it. Thought I had one more good time, you'd have a different speaker tonight. But I just could not live without fun. When I was 16 years old, I took a drink, and I never had a good time in my life where I wasn't drinking. And that's I just equated booze and good times. And I come from a long line of drunks. Everybody in my family died of alcoholism. I'm the only one alive because I came to the A&A. You know, it's in the DNA. Just add alcohol and you got one. And so I like to think of my drinking, though, the last maybe 7, 8, 9 years when I drank every day, when I had to drink every day to live, to get by. Huh? I came to AA in 1965, for God's sakes. I had a surfboard shop down at the beach there in Oceanside, another guy and I went down on a Sunday morning to repair a surfboard, and it was early in the morning on a Sunday, and I had a hangover. Oh, no! Yeah? Honest to God. And I went into the refrigerator to see if there was a Coke or something because my mouth was on. And I wasn't a morning drinker. I was a weekend drinker. Remember that? Took Wednesday off. Weekend drinker, what the hell? Get off my back, I'm a weekend drinker. And I opened the refrigerator, and my partner Woody had been there the night before in the office there, and he left about this much vodka in a half-a-pint bottle, and there was some orange juice in the refrigerator, and I thought, hey, that would really cut the crud, you know. So I mixed up this little light drink and drank it, and I went on about my business. And we got a lot of new people here tonight. That's the reason I bring this up, because, you know, that little bit of vodka, that lick and a smell, my dad would have called it, it just got in my bloodstream and circulated. You know how it does. And then it went. My mind talked to me. And it said, shame on you, Cliff. Shame, shame, shame. That was Woody's booze you drank. Why don't you go up to the liquor store and get old Woody a pint? That's the kind of guy I am, you know. That afternoon I got him a fifth. And I ended up with resin all over me. The board was screwed forever. The shop was a mess, and I crawled home. And the next day I called A&A, and I went to some meetings. They were very small meetings in those days. There were only like 9 in the whole area in 1965. And I'm highly educated. I got lots of degrees, okay? And I've been educated way beyond my intelligence. And these people in these AA meetings, I realized I'd made a grievous error in judgment with these people. They seem to have the collective IQ of an orange. On the third night, I was trying to help them, and this guy said, "Hey, we keep it simple here." I said, "No shit." You sure could have fooled me, Leroy. Oh, they had a sign on the wall. It said, "First things first." What the hell does that mean? But even better than that, right next to it, they had another sign that said, "Think." Yeah, we'll get right on that. That's my problem, you morons! Good God, if I could quit thinking, I wouldn't have to drink. Are you crazy? Put me in a closet with a pistol and say, "Think." God almighty. So I didn't last very long. I would come to a speaker meeting there in Oceanside on Sunday evenings at 6:30, maybe 30, 40 people. I think Riley came down and talked one time when I was slipping in now. But Riley, I thought everybody's name was Clem. You know, of course, I was way in the back in the loser chair. I thought you'd been out of bib overalls about an hour and a half, you know, and your wife's name was Martha, and your problem was drinking. That's what I heard you say. I wonder what the new people are hearing me say. I heard you say that your problem was drinking, that you had been a wonderful person most of your life, but you drank too much and it interfered with your life, so you gave it up and you came to the AA and you were rehabilitated. You know the word rehabilitated? That's what it sounded like what happened to you. You went back to being a good person that you had been before. My hero in '65 was a guy named Eldridge Cleaver. He was a black militant terrorist. Well, my politics in 1965 were blow it up or burn it down. I didn't really give a shit which. I was for peace. And if you weren't for peace, I'd kill you. You'd be for peace, okay? And Eldridge had given this great speech. He was talking about the prison system the night I heard him. And he was saying they were always trying to rehabilitate him in prison. He says, you know what they'd never known about him? He had never been rehabilitated. And you can't rehabilitate somebody who's never been Habilitated. That's how I felt in the A&A. Evidently, you dimwits have been all right at some point in your life. I was crazy when I was 4 years old. I can remember, I lived on the Speedway in Venice. That'd make you crazy right there, you know. When I was 4, cute little tyke, had a lot of hair, and I would I'd stand there on the Speedway and wait for cars. When a car would come, I'd go, and like a soldier at his post, I'd wait for another one. Didn't know how to do this yet, you know. People come driving, like, look at the little boy. What the hell? I don't know what you were like. That's how I felt when I was 4 years old, and it never changed. I lived on the edge of psychosis my whole life. I lived on the edge of insanity. And I was filled with hostility, and I was filled with vendetta, and I was filled with revenge, and I was filled with fear. And that's how I lived my whole life. I had a big black ball in the middle of my belly. I don't know what your story is, but I had a big black ball in the middle of my belly, and it ruled my life. And I never had a thought or an emotion or a reaction of any kind that wasn't generated and controlled by that black ball in the middle of my belly. And if you don't know, and some of you do, that's a horrible way to live. It's painful. And when I was 16, I found out that after I drank about 40 minutes, whatever I was drinking, after about 40 minutes, I would have about 8 minutes where everything in my life was all right. I was enough for about 8 minutes. Went downhill a lot of times after that. But at least in a 24-hour period, I had 8 minutes of peace. And if you would have stopped me on the street and said, what's serenity? I would say, about 8 minutes, 40 minutes into my drinking. Because that's the only peace of mind I ever had. And I was sitting in that meeting one night, and I thought, they want me to give up my 8 minutes to hang around with them. No. So I resigned from AA. Have you ever done that? Oh, upsets them terribly. You know. Cliff who? And for the next 5 years, I was in and out and in and out. Now, but I was really a functioning alcoholic, and I built this speech team at Oceanside High there because they insulted me. The first time I went to a speech tournament, a debate tournament, they all ignored me, and I was getting even with them, getting revenge, especially this gray-haired guy that had insulted me. He asked me where Oceanside was. In San Diego, he asked me where Oceanside was, 30 miles up the road. And so with a superhuman effort, I built this speech team, see? This powerhouse speech team. And I do it out of sheer anger. Guy next door to me used to say, I'd love to watch them leaving your room wiping the spit off their glasses. Well, I was in their face, baby, My captain of my team, a reporter, said, what's the secret of your coach's success? The kid said, terror. So after killing myself, almost dying of alcoholism for 4 or 5 years, I built this team up to the point where we had a speech tournament one time, and there were 25 schools, and my team scored more sweepstakes points than the other 24 schools combined. That's what I had waited for. This guy had asked me where Oceanside was, huh? I had waited all this time to get him. And I got right in his face. And I said, do you know where Oceanside is now? And he looked surprised. He said, what are you talking about? I said, don't you remember about 5 years ago when you insulted me and asked me where Oceanside was? He said, well, we just moved here from Nebraska. I didn't know where it was. Got to hurry this along here. I don't want to go overtime. Some of you probably have several blocks to go home. So right after that, my wife and I had one of our main events, which the neighbors have come to miss so much. And my neighbors actually didn't get television until after I got sober. They didn't need it. They all had those Venetian blind marks on their forehead, And I moved out, and I'm living down at the beach. I went by the house one afternoon, was haranguing my wife about money, I guess. And the hashy salesman was kind of bobbing there in the background, humming a tune from the planet Pluto. And I turned to him and I said, Dave, what's it like not to have your old man around the house? Dumb question, huh? Because he looked me right in the eye and he said, "It's beautiful." And I went back to that dump on the beach where I was living, and I ranted and raved for a couple hours, but I didn't take a drink. And I went out on the screen porch and I watched the most beautiful sunset that I've ever seen to this day. And about the time the sun was going down into the water, I had that moment. Our big book talks about that moment of clarity. I saw me. I saw what I had become. I never liked myself. I've never met an alcoholic that was crazy about themselves. We think constantly of ourselves, but not well of ourselves, That's what I don't understand, Al. Why would you waste all that time thinking about somebody else? You had to be a weird person to do that, huh? I'm not much, but I'm all I think about. But that, I had never liked myself, but I had all my life maybe 3 or 4 things about myself that I had respected. And as that sun went down into the water, I realized that I had traded in those 3 or 4 things for the privilege of drinking booze. And I didn't like the guy that was sitting on that chaise lounge. And I went in the bedroom and dug out the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Being an English teacher, I thought it was very poorly written. And read a lot better this time. I read the big book for 3 days and 3 nights. I called in sick. I didn't go to work. I ate a little tiny bit. I slept less. And I read the big book of Alcoholics, cover to cover. If you're new, I read all the stories. And in the second edition, there was a story called The Professor and the Paradox. And he was another egotistical school teacher. And he rang my bell. And on the third time through the book, on the 13th of January, 1970, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I was on page 63 again. And if you're new, on page 63, there's a prayer. And that prayer is step 3. And I saw this linoleum tonight, and this is the same pattern on that dump on the beach where I was living. Exactly. This is cleaner, but I knelt down on that filthy linoleum floor on that dump on the beach, and I read that prayer out loud to myself. I read, "God, I offer myself to thee to build with me as you will. Relieve me of the bondage of self." And when I was new, I looked up the word bondage. It means slavery. Relieve me of the bondage of self. And that's what Alcoholics Anonymous has been about for the last 28 years. Getting Cliff Roche out of Cliff Roche. Get me involved in the lives of guys like Don. Guys that love me and guys that I love. It's got me out of my bed at all hours in the morning to go talk to a sick one. It made me go out of my way to talk to new people. It made me be kind to my children and try to think about them once in a while. That took a long time. Alcoholics Anonymous is in the business of getting me out of me. Before I was 4 years old, I had built a prison. Now, I imagine there's some good psychological reasons for that. I'm not interested in psychology. This is a spiritual way of life. This is a spiritual solution to every problem I'll ever run across. And my major problem was I had built this prison, I guess, to keep you out. And all I did was isolate myself in there, so I had nowhere to go. But lucky for me, I got this little sponsor. His name was Bill Blake. The late, great Bill Blake. Yeah. Little electrician there in Oceanside. 7th grade education. Had been a Skid Row wino. Slept under the steps of the Seaside Hotel. And he'd come out from under those steps 8 years before and gotten sober. And when I showed up, it was just right. Because I went and knocked on their door that night. If you're new, I'd been a 5-year loser. Overeducated, pompous ass loser. Always made fun of you when I was here. Real popular guy, you can imagine, you know. Margie, Bill's wife, opened the door, and here I am on the porch. How do you suppose she reacted to me? I've never seen anybody so glad to see me in my whole life. This loser, this smartass. She snatched me in the house, poured me a cup of coffee, said, "Oh, this is wonderful." Oh, she said, "Bill's been crazy lately. He's had nobody to work with. Oh, this is so good." And Bill comes in, "Cliff! Oh, God!" In about a half an hour, I'm thinking, anything else I can do to help you folks out? Be glad to help any way I can. It made me feel like Cliff's here. We can start AA now. 3 weeks later, I was in a meeting with newcomers, other newcomers, a newcomer meeting. And one of the other newcomers said, "What do you mean this is a selfish program?" And see, I knew. When that guy asked that question, I knew the answer. See, those two people knew the great secret of Alcoholics Anonymous. You can't have it unless you give it away. If you're new here, if you want to just sit around here and be a spectator, you're dead meat. The only successful people I've ever known in AA are the people who are the doers. 15% of them do, and the other 85% criticize, like the rest of the world, you know. But, you know, I'll talk at a convention, go back 10 years later, and the worker bees, the people who were putting on that convention 10 years before, are still there, they're still working, and they're still sober. And all the critics are gone. My sponsor used to just plug you into AA. Whatever gift he thought you had, you did it. And when I was new, I knew my problem had always been, all my life I was never loved enough. I knew that. And I was right. You know, one thing I didn't know about me is there isn't enough. You haven't got enough. I'm the black hole of love that goes in there, you never see it again, you know. See, but the little sponsor, he knew what was the matter with me. But he never told me. Because I was too stupid or too brilliant. What's the difference? You're just as dead. You're just as dead from being too smart. He knew what my problem had always been. My problem had always been, I never loved enough. See, every great philosopher, every great theologian who ever lived says the way to be happy is to love. All of them. Well, maybe not Nietzsche, but almost all of them. And I had read them all. I had a philosophy minor in college. I loved it so much. But I had to learn the truth from an electrician. Well, he knew how to put it. Shut up and do it. And he just made me take loving actions, is what he did. Whatever was wrong in my life, he pointed out an action for me to take, which seemed at the time ridiculous and stupid. But thank God for me, and if you're new, I pray to God you are surrendered. I pray to God you don't have any more answers of your own. I pray to God you say, you can't push me around, I'm somebody. Because I was all out of answers. All my arrogance was gone. I had no more plans. And so when that little fool would tell me to do things, I'd do them because I had no other answers. And he told me to, you know, stand at the door and shake hands with people. I hate that. I'm a snob. You know, how are you tonight? What's your name? Like I really... We used to have wall talkers. Remember Riley? Remember those guys? Those three guys? They used to sit in the back and talk to the wall. They drank about 3 weeks too long, you know. No, really. Riley, you'll remember. They used to go, so as soon as the meeting was over, he'd say, go talk to the wall talkers. How are you tonight? Good, good. And we had a guy named Al McGee, you know, who was a worse loser than me, and he had no driver's license. And my kids were on drugs, and my wife wouldn't go to Al-Anon. We were a crazy place, and I'd have nervous breakdowns, and I'd go tell my sponsor all that was going on over there, and I'd sob and cry, and he'd listen. And as soon as I'd shut up, he'd say, why don't you go get Al and take him to the meeting? What the hell has that got to do with a nervous breakdown? It was like asking a guy, what time is it? The horse is dead. What? But I had no more answers of my own. How lucky I was, huh? So I'd go get Al. I hated Al. He was a blowhard. I'd drive him to the meeting. He just, we'd set the meeting up, make the coffee, everybody come, everybody go home. Al and I'd set the meeting down, wash the coffee, had real cups. He had to wash because he was so shaky. He just put his hands in the water. But I could drive. Shit. Put him in the car, all the way home. Let him off. And I'd start driving home, see? And all of a sudden, this feeling would come over me. It used to scare the hell out of me. It would only last maybe 40 seconds. Oh, it was better than the 8 minutes ever was. I thought it was because I got rid of Al. You know, but that feeling kept coming back to me, you know, when I'd stand at the door, when I'd go on the 12-step call with my sponsor, when we'd get a new guy to a meeting, get him cleaned up, you know, see him start to get sober. All that, you know, that feeling just kept coming. And I was about 1.5 years sober on a second inventory when I realized what that feeling is. It's the feeling of being enough. So I don't know about you, but I had never been enough of anything in my whole life. Not of anything. No matter what I did, no matter what I accomplished. I coached national champions and 35 state champions. You know, I walked around the world showing you all the time, and I never was enough. But because of the steps of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12 steps, they promised me that I'll have a spiritual awakening at the end. And I've had all kinds of spiritual awakenings all the way along the line. I told you about one tonight, the puking one. It's kind of tacky, but it's a spiritual awakening. You know, the book says in the back, I had that one sudden experience, and I've had 1,000 since then. Watching this guy, stayed awake tonight too, that's a spiritual experience. Watching this man, he celebrated his 6th birthday day before yesterday. And when he came into prayer, he was a destroyed human being. There was nothing left to dawn. And he's really sprung up from the ashes. He's a better man than he ever was before. He's a magnificent human being today. Because he worked the steps and because he does as he's told. He didn't have any answers either. And I know and love guys that I've seen their lives change and see them change other lives on and on and on. Just because I take the trouble to take the actions. You know, like there's no big, wonderful thrill to drive 2.5 hours to talk 45 minutes, I'm telling you. Especially if you let smokers use part of the time. But I judge no man. As your sponsor would say, as he judges all men. You know, those promises, they've come true in my life. If you're new on bottom of page 83, the top of 84, read those promises. Read those promises. You're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. You're not going to regret the past and wish to shut the door. You're going to comprehend the word serenity and know peace. Huh? We're going to comprehend. You know, then I always love it when I get to the bottom of all those promises. It says, are these extravagant promises? Oh, no. My God. A person like me could never dare hope for anything like that. And I want to tell you, if you're new, all those promises have come true in my life. But you know, those promises in the middle there, Bill sneaks in the tough ones. No matter how far down the scale we run, see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. I'm still waiting on that. I love you. See, I want you to be sober as much as I want to be sober myself. That's how we measure love in Alcoholics Anonymous. I want you to be sober as much as I want to be sober myself. If you know, our saying says, if you want to drink, that's your business. And boy, I agree with that. This is no treatment center as far as I'm concerned. If you want to drink, that's your business. I would never interfere with that. But if you want to stop, that's our business. We'll love you when you can't love yourself, and we'll love you till you can love yourself. And if you're new, I want to tell you, you don't have to believe any of this is going to happen to you. I didn't believe it when I was new. I believed it happened to Bill, but I didn't believe it would happen to me. But I want to tell you that I lived almost every day of my life happy and joyous and free. A sick, mentally ill weirdo lives almost every day of his life happy, joyous, and free. Hope you do too.
Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.